Ever imagine a medical breakthrough could be sitting right there in your medicine cabinet? Well, get ready because today's deep dive is all about drug repurposing, and it's a wild ride you don't want to miss.
I'm ready.
So let's jump right in. What exactly is drug repurposing?
Well, it's kind of like instead of trying to invent a brand new drug from scratch, we look for new uses for drugs that already exist.
Oh, interesting. So less reinventing the wheel, more like finding hidden treasures, right? But what makes that so groundbreaking?
Developing a new drug the traditional way, it's a long shot. Years, sometimes even decades of research, tons of money poured into it, and there's still no guarantee you'll even end up with something that works.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a gamble for sure.
Exactly. But drug repurposing, it's like taking a shortcut. We've already got these drugs, they've been tested, they're safe and effective for certain things, so if we can find new ways to use them.
We save a ton of time and money.
Exactly. And it's already led to some amazing discoveries, actually. Take thalidomide, for example.
Oh, right. Thalidomide. Didn't that start as a morning sickness drug?
It did. Then they found out it was effective against leprosy and even multiple myeloma, which is a type of cancer.
Wow, that's quite the journey for one drug. Are there other success stories like that?
Oh, tons. What about that little blue pill that took the world by storm?
You mean Viagra? I knew that had to be on the list. Didn't it start as a heart medication?
Yep. Sildenafil, that's the active ingredient, they were actually studying it to treat angina, which is a type of chest pain.
Wow, from angina to, well,
Mhm.
that's repurposing for you.
It really is. But here's where things get really interesting. What if we could use artificial intelligence to find these hidden uses systematically?
Now you're talking. AI seems to be everywhere these days. So how does it fit into the world of drug repurposing?
Well, there's this cutting-edge AI model called TxGNN, and it's designed to do just that, predict drug repurposing opportunities, even for diseases that we don't have any treatments for yet.
Wait, really? Even for diseases with NO treatments? How's that even possible?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
It all comes down to this thing called a medical knowledge graph.
Okay, medical knowledge graph. Sounds a little intimidating, to be honest. What is it in simpler terms?
So imagine this. A massive web of medical information, diseases, symptoms, genes, proteins, drug interactions, you name it, it's in there. And this knowledge graph maps out all the connections between them.
So it's like a giant web that shows how everything is related.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And TxGNN is like a detective analyzing this giant web of data. It's got two main parts.
Mhm.
The predictor, which sifts through all the connections looking for clues about which drugs might work for which diseases, even if they seem totally unrelated. And then there's the explainer.
The explainer. That sounds promising. What does it do?
The explainer is what makes TxGNN really special. It doesn't just spit out an answer. It tells you WHY. It thinks that answer is right.
Oh, so it shows its work, like a good student. That makes me feel more confident in its predictions. But let's get back to this whole no existing treatments thing for a second. How can it possibly predict something like that?
That's where this whole idea of zero-shot drug repurposing comes in. Basically, it means predicting how well a drug will work for a specific disease, even if we have little or no data on it.
Okay, so it's like navigating uncharted territory. How does TxGNN even begin to do that?
It's all about finding those hidden connections and similarities. TxGNN is really good at spotting similar diseases, even if on the surface they seem completely different. Like think about antidepressants, SSRIs, for example. They're often used for a bunch of different mental health conditions, even though those conditions present in totally different ways.
That's true.
Yeah.
So even if two diseases seem worlds apart, there might be some underlying link that TxGNN can pick up on. But how does it know which drugs might actually work on those shared mechanisms?
Remember that medical knowledge graph? It also has all this data about how different drugs interact with our biological processes. So TxGNN can analyze those interactions, look for patterns, and predict which drugs might be effective, even if they've never been tested for that specific disease before.
This is starting to sound almost too good to be true. So how do we know if these predictions actually pan out in the real world? Did they just run simulations, or did they actually put TxGNN to the test? It's one thing to have a fancy algorithm, but did they actually test this thing with real data?
Oh yeah, they put it through the ringer. They actually tested TxGNN against 8 other drug repurposing methods, head-to-head. Okay, now we're talking. So what did these tests actually involve?
They used two main scenarios. The first one, they called it the standard test. It was all about predicting drug effectiveness for diseases that already have some treatments, kind of like an open book test.
Makes sense. So it's like seeing if TxGNN can find the answers that are already out there. But what about the second scenario? You mentioned diseases with no existing treatments.
All right, the second scenario, that was the real test, the zero-shot test, they called it. This is where TxGNN had to predict drug candidates for diseases where we basically have no treatment data. It's like a closed book exam where you've never even seen the material before.
Now that's a challenge. So how did TxGNN do?
In the standard scenario, it did really well, as did some of the other methods. It was pretty close. But when it came to the zero-shot scenario, this is where it gets really interesting. The zero-shot scenario, that's the real test.
And TxGNN just blew the competition out of the water.
Yeah.
Consistently outperformed all the other methods.
Wow. So it can actually handle this incredibly complex problem, and it does it better than anything else out there. That's huge. But did they test it on different types of diseases? I mean, something that works for, say, an infection might not work for something like cancer,
They're
right?
thinking like a scientist. Yeah, they actually
Yeah.
tested it on 9 different disease areas. Everything from diabetes and adrenal gland issues to autoimmune diseases, anemia, even neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. They even looked at mental health conditions, metabolic disorders, cardiovascular diseases, cancers.
Wow, so the whole spectrum. And what
Yeah.
were the results like across the board? Was it still top dog?
This is the crazy part. TxGNN consistently outperformed all the other methods in all 9 disease areas.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking by a small margin either. This thing was crushing it.
Okay, color me impressed. But let's get real for a second. This all sounds fantastic, but does it actually hold UP in the real world, like with real patients?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? Predictive power is one thing, but we want to see it in action. So to see how TxGNN's predictions would actually play out in the clinic, they analyzed over 1.2 million patient records from a large healthcare system.
Okay, so they went straight to the source, real patient data. What were they looking for in these records?
They were particularly interested in what are called off-label prescriptions. That's where doctors are already using drugs for things other than their approved indications. It's like a real-world experiment happening right now.
That's so cool. So doctors are already exploring these repurposing possibilities even without AI.
Exactly. And get this, drugs that TxGNN ranked highly were significantly more likely to be used off-label.
No way. So the model's predictions were actually lining up with what doctors were already doing in the real world. That's some pretty compelling evidence for TxGNN. Got any specific examples?
Sure. One example is deferesirox. It's a drug normally used for iron overload, but TxGNN flagged it as a potential treatment for Wilson's disease, which is a rare genetic disorder. And guess what? Doctors were already prescribing deferesirox off-label for that exact purpose.
That's amazing. But I have to ask, are we saying this is the end of traditional drug development? Will AI replace scientists altogether?
Not quite. It's important to remember that TxGNN is a tool, a very powerful tool, but still a tool. It's here to help us, to speed things up, not to replace scientists in clinical trials altogether.
Right, it's more like AI and human expertise joining forces.
Exactly. TxGNN can help narrow down the search, find promising candidates, even give us new insights into how diseases work. But we still need rigorous testing, clinical trials. All of that is crucial to make sure any drug, repurposed or brand new, is safe and effective before it reaches patients.
So it's not about replacing human ingenuity, it's about amplifying it, like giving scientists a superpower.
Precisely. And this collaboration, it has the potential to revolutionize not just drug development, but medicine as a whole.
Now that's a future I'm excited about. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, you mentioned that drug repurposing has already led to some pretty incredible discoveries. Can you give us some more examples of how this repurposing magic has actually played out in the real world?
Oh, absolutely. There are tons. One cool example is rapamycin. You might be surprised to learn that this drug, which was originally developed to prevent organ rejection after transplants, has shown some serious potential in the fight against aging.
Hold on, wait. Are you saying that a drug designed to suppress the immune system could be the key to slowing down aging? That sounds like something out of a movie.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But there's actually some pretty compelling science behind it. Studies have shown that rapamycin can extend lifespan, ND, improve health span. That's the part of your life you spend in good health in several animal models.
That's incredible. But how does it even work? What does suppressing the immune system have to do with aging?
Well, it turns out that rapamycin's effects go way beyond just suppressing the immune system. It also seems to impact cellular processes involved in growth, metabolism, even the aging process itself.
So it's like rapamycin stumbled upon this hidden control panel for aging. Amazing. Any other drugs that have taken such a wild ride on the repurposing train?
Plenty. How about metformin? You might know it as a common type 2 diabetes medication.
Oh, yeah, metformin, sure. My grandmother takes that for her diabetes. What's the story there? What else can this diabetes drug do?
Get this, recent research suggests it might have anti-cancer
Oh,
properties.
whoa. Seriously. Anti-cancer.
Yep. Studies have shown that taking metformin is linked to a lower risk of developing certain cancers. And it might even slow down cancer progression in some cases.
That's incredible. So a drug we've been using to treat diabetes for years could also hold the key to fighting cancer. That's amazing. Any idea why metformin might have these anti-cancer effects?
Researchers think it might be because of metformin's ability to influence cell growth and metabolism. For example, they think it activates this protein called AMPK, which plays a big role in regulating energy balance within cells. And by activating AMPK, metformin might actually be able to suppress that uncontrolled growth. That's a hallmark of cancer cells.
So it's like cutting off the fuel supply to a runaway train. I like that analogy. Are there clinical trials underway to explore this anti-cancer potential?
Absolutely. Because of these promising results, metformin is currently being investigated in a ton of clinical trials for all sorts of cancers.
That's so exciting. It gives me hope that we might already have powerful weapons against diseases like cancer just hidden in plain sight.
That's the beauty of drug repurposing. And with AI like TxGNN leading the way, it seems like we're getting better and better at finding those hidden gems.
It's truly a game changer. Now, you've shared some really incredible examples of repurposed drugs, but I'm curious to hear about one more, something totally out of left field. A drug that's taken a truly wild ride from its original purpose to a totally different application. Got any stories like that up your sleeve?
Oh, absolutely. Ever heard of disulfiram? It's a medication used to treat alcohol use disorder.
It rings a bell, but remind me how it works. And what's its big repurposing claim to fame?
Disulfiram, sometimes it's called antabuse, it works by blocking this enzyme, aldehyde dehydrogenase. It's involved in how your body breaks down alcohol. So if someone's taking disulfiram and they have a drink, they're going to have a bad time. We're talking nausea, vomiting, headaches, flushing.
Ah, okay, I remember now.
Yeah, it basically makes drinking really unappealing, kind of a deterrent.
Definitely not the life of the party. But how did this alcohol drug end up being repurposed? What else can it do?
So get this. Researchers found out that disulfiram might actually have anti-cancer properties.
Whoa.
Yeah. The thinking is that it might be able to inhibit certain enzymes that cancer cells need to grow and survive. Preclinical studies have shown some promising results, and they're actually looking at it now in clinical trials for various cancers, including brain cancer and lung cancer.
It just blows my mind how a drug for one thing can end up being effective for something completely different. It really shows you just how interconnected everything is in our bodies and how many possibilities there are in medicine.
Absolutely. And that's what makes drug repurposing such an exciting field, is like we're uncovering hidden connections and pathways.
And with AI like TxGNN to guide us, it seems like we're getting really good at it.
Exactly. These AI models can sift through mountains of data way faster than humans ever could and find potential links that might have taken us years, decades even, to discover on our own. It's a real game changer.
So what does the future hold for drug repurposing and AI in medicine? Any predictions?
Well, I'm no fortune teller, but I'm really optimistic about what's on the horizon. With tools like TxGNN leading the way, I think we're on the verge of a whole new era in drug development. I think we'll see a lot more of these discoveries a lot faster, which means cheaper and more effective treatments for all kinds of diseases.
That's definitely something to look forward to.
And the best part is, it's not just about the patients. This has the potential to make healthcare more affordable and accessible for everyone. Imagine a world where groundbreaking treatments are available to anyone who needs them, no matter who they are or where they live. That's the kind of future we're talking about.
Now that is a future I want to live in. Well, on that note, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your incredible insights. This has been an amazing deep dive.
It's been a pleasure being here. It's always exciting to talk about the potential of AI in medicine.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of drug repurposing. We'll be back soon with another fascinating topic, so keep those brains engaged and those curiosity fires burning. Until then, stay curious.